Joseph from Russellville, first up on the show today. Should HSA dollars be invested in high growth? I'm 37, only $20,000 left to pay on my house, $80,000 income, maxing Roth and HSA, and getting 401k employer match. Joseph, thanks very much. Health Savings Account, that's the acronym HSA stands for. We've talked about it many times on this program, but John, these are great opportunities for people to put money back on a pre-tax basis. You do have to be eligible for them, and that means you have a high deductible health insurance plan. So oftentimes an employer, if you choose the high deductible health insurance plan, they will offer an HSA to supplement that. And you can put, coming into 2024, up to $4,150 into that as an individual, or $8,300 as a family. And they actually do have a catch-up on the HSA contribution limits for those 55 and over. The catch-up is 50 for other retirement accounts, but this is 55 and over. They actually add $1,000 to that if you're older. Because the idea here, John, is for the health savings account, you can use it. There's no 59.5 catch on it as far as being penalized for taking it out. You can put it in, and 1 year later, in the same year, take it back out and use it for qualifying health care expenses. So if you put it in on a pre-tax basis and you take it out and it's not taxed, and all that growth is tax-free, works much like a Roth IRA, except on the Roth IRA, you're actually putting in after-tax dollars. So it's a triple tax advantage vehicle if you use it for healthcare, qualified healthcare expenses. So the question I think for us would be, for Joseph being 37, is how is this set up in your life? How are you using this? Because if you're maxing out your HSA at 37, I would assume there may be some ongoing health expenses that he's having to incur.
Yeah, possibly so. And let me first of all say that full disclosure, we don't manage HSA accounts here at GenWealth. Those are not investment type accounts that we have any kind of management over or control over. So anything that we're going to tell you about this is strictly opinion. But I think that you have to think about this from the standpoint. His question really was, how can I invest this money?
Yeah.
And I think you have to think about this almost in the same way that you think about the bucketing strategy as a part of our ready to retire process. You know that you're going to have some short-term medical expenses that you will want to tap into that HSA account for. Now, you certainly do not want that money to be invested in the stock market, because at any particular point in time, the market could be down significantly and you wouldn't have all the dollars available to you if you had those invested in stocks. So we would probably tell Joseph that he should think about a bifurcated type scenario where he has maybe a year or two of expenses in terms of deductibles and co-insurance and things that he will likely spend money on over the next 2 years. You want to have that pretty rock solid. You want to have that in the most conservative investment option that they have in the HSA. Now, the rest of the money, if you've accumulated money in that HSA and you've maxed it out and you've got a pretty good balance, then you could take the rest of that money and set it into a program that invests in some type of stocks or some type of mutual funds, ETFs, things of that nature, and you have a much more long-term perspective on when you might use that money, then that does make some sense. I do think it also makes sense, Scott, from a diversification standpoint, to not go all in high growth in that, because I do think that your time horizon is not 15 or 20 years when you're going to use that money. It might be 3 or 4 or 5 years. So maybe more of a balanced portfolio might be the right thing to do. And I think that is caveated around the question of, are you going to use that HSA for health expenses, or are you going to pay for those out of your pocket and use the HSA to build that up over time? I would caution, because you do need to use it for health expenses. It is not something that you're going to be able to supplement your retirement with.
Right. And the other thing I would ask Joseph, and he's told us that he's maxing out his Roth and getting the 401k employer match. So contributing enough to his employer plan to get the matching dollars. So he's getting some good money back into his retirement savings, but is it going to be enough? And I think that's where we would tell Joseph to come in and get a retirement plan built so that you know that you're on track with your retirement contributions, because they really do. Even though you can use the HSA in retirement for health care expenses, they're not really your retirement income. You need to have your retirement income on track by what you're contributing, with an assumed rate of return growth over the decades that he likely has until he's planning to retire. And then it will be able to show you what kind of income those assets will produce in retirement. And then, of course, his individual health situation matters greatly here as well.
Scott, I've not run the numbers on this, so I don't know if you can get there from here, so to speak. But one of the things that you could use those HSA dollars for, if you are going ahead and taking care of your health expenses out of your pocket, you could build up that HSA over time, and it could be a situation where you could literally self-insure some of your long-term care expenses if you incur long-term care needs after you retire. A lot of people are really hesitant to spend a big bunch of money on long-term care insurance, and I get that, because they don't want to think about them needing that type of care. They don't want to think about being old and not being able to take care of themselves. But it is a reality. About 50% of the over 65 population is going to incur some type of long-term health care expense. And so an HSA gives you at least a partial way to partially self-insure against maybe some of those future expenses. But I would say at 37, that's Joseph is planning very long-term in terms of that, but it is a use case for that HSA in the future.
We didn't even talk about only having $20,000 left on his house. So congratulations to Joseph.
Doing really well.